Welcome to day 15 of the Learn How to Study Abroad in 30 Days series. We are halfway through. I am so excited about that. I want you to leave a comment below. How has it been for you these first 15 days? If you are just getting started with the series, definitely go check out days 1 to 14. If you've been with me this entire time, how have you been finding it? How have you been going along in the process? I want to know, so leave a comment below. In terms of what we're going to be talking about today for day 15, we are at the high point of everything. So we're going to be talking about how to submit your applications with ease. So you've gone through everything, you figured out what program you want to do, you are at the point where you would want to actually submit your application. And so we're going to talk about what that process might look like for you. Let's go ahead and get started. So we have made it halfway through the series. It's a bit crazy to think about. So we are going to be moving more into looking forward at submitting your application and then some of the things that would happen after that. So you have gone through everything now that you're going to need to get to this point. So we are thinking about what it means when you are ready to move forward with submitting. So you've finally gotten to the step where you have put in all of the work. So you started out by just figuring out what is study abroad, what is this thing that I keep hearing about that people do. And then we went to what is your why. You decided when you wanted to do it, where you wanted to do it. You did all of the hard work, and now it's finally time to hit send, hit submit, or actually mail your application. So when I get to this point with students, when I'm coaching them, and this is always an exciting time for me as well, as you can probably tell, that it really is just a time to sort of step back and reflect because you've done something that is really exciting. And I know that, again, as I always say, that a lot of my students out there are already at the college or university level. But with the study abroad level, it's a little bit more fun because with college or university, you know that there's a lot of hard work ahead. And with study abroad, it can be too. But there's also that element of excitement of I'm going somewhere totally new. I'm going to do something brand new. I hopefully will get to travel a little bit and learn all these new things. And there's just the opportunity out there to actually be able to do it. And after putting in all this hard work, it feels so good to be at this point to submit your application. And I think that this is also the point too where a lot of students start to come off of the high a little bit and they're like, okay, once I submit, I know that it's out of my hands, and what happens if I don't get in? And we will talk a little bit more about that, about having additional plans as well. But I always just like to say that you can never be too safe in what you're doing. So you want to make sure that you are being smart about submitting your application. So things to remember, you're going to be overwhelmed with excitement, but these are the important things to remember. And these are a culmination of what we've been talking about for these first 15 days. So as you're getting to this point, do you have all of your key parts in place? So we know who your key players are by this point. We know what we needed from them. Do you have all of that in place? It doesn't mean you have all of it in hand because, for example, with the letters of recommendation, there's a likelihood that you will not have any connection directly with those, but do you have it where you have the right email for the people that you want to have the letters of recommendation for them to do them? Do you have the right address if you need to mail all of your applications directly? Do you have the right address? Do you know who to address it to? It's all these things that if you save them to the last minute, it's going to drive you crazy. And so you want to make sure that you have all the key parts in place. So whenever you plan to submit, that you are good to go, you know that everything is going to work out how it should. Have you proofread your application and your essay? So we have been talking about proofreading and going through the application and doing that. Just give it one more skim. Give it one more good read. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be perfect. I can tell you the amount of times that I have submitted things that have been kind of my top thing that's had like one period missing or one something. It happens, right? That's just part of human nature. But you don't want to have big mistakes that are just going to be like glaring right in the face that, oh my gosh, I missed this. Or even if it's something like that seems small but is big, like maybe you live in an apartment and you left the apartment number off and you're like, oh my goodness, like I didn't even realize the first 2 times I saw that. You want to just give it a good skim again, go through it. The other thing you want to do too is, and I know this can be a bit annoying for those of us who are control freaks or who are very independent, but I can tell you that I have always done this when it's been big things like applications, is you want to have someone else read through your application and your essay. And preferably you want someone who is not as close to the process. So while it may be good for mom and dad to do that, maybe it's a classmate who you don't even know that well, but you're like, hey, like, even if there's nothing wrong with this. If you had to pay them, say, hey, I will pay you $10 or €10 or however much they want, or I will give you a DoorDash gift card or whatever that looks like for you. If you can spend some time, maybe you spend 30 minutes doing this for me. Have someone do it who is going to be a little bit more objective. Now, of course, hopefully you have come to me and you've scheduled a free coaching session to go through your essay, but you've had me looking at it. But again, I'm a little bit closer to it because this is what I do all the time. You want someone who, they may not even be study abroad. They may not even be in your field. And you want them to look at it and say, like, if you were looking at this, how does it sound to you? What does it look like? Did I miss anything? Do I need to add anything? Just so that you get that extra layer. And yeah, I know it seems a little bit late in the process, but having that kind of last step, it doesn't mean you're going to change everything, especially about your essay. But maybe they just went through and they're like, actually, this paragraph and this paragraph doesn't match. And then you're like, oh, shoot, like I realized I used the wrong version of the essay and I was going to send this to the application with the application. You want to just have someone else look at that. And it tends to be better if it's someone that's not as close to the process with you. So definitely consider that if you can. Do you know how to submit it? So we kind of touched on this in the first point, but do you know how to submit it? Do you know if you have to submit the application online, but then the rest of it you have to mail? Do you know if you have to submit all of it by hard mail? Do you know if all of it needs to go into one PDF? What does that actually look like? How do you submit it? Who do you submit it to? Do you need to create a cover letter so that it goes to a specific person? Do you need to create some type of note at the front so that people know this is my application, last name, first name, whatever that looks like? Different ones have different requirements. What does that actually look like for your program? And again, you're probably applying to multiple programs. So do you need to do this for every program? What does it look like? Do you know how to submit it? Do you know who to submit it to? Last but not least, do you have a backup plan if it does not go well? We will get into that a little bit later. But have you thought about, you've gone through all this hard work. You have gone through the process of all of this. If it doesn't work out, what is your next step? And of course, you're giving yourself that leeway of knowing that it may be 6 to 12 weeks from now or from whenever you actually submit that you actually find out. But what is your backup plan if at worst everything goes bad and you don't get to study abroad? What is that? I always like to point that out because I know that a lot of students, even though they feel like they diversified and they've chosen a lot of programs, for whatever reason, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And I never want you to walk away with nothing. I always like students to have their opportunity to do something. I think particularly when you get to the college and university level, you're really trying to move towards that next step. And as someone who has basically done it all when it comes to that, I always like for you to have something that you could kind of latch onto if study abroad doesn't work out. Even just the idea of saying, well, I'm going to apply again next semester. But I always like you to think about that before you do this, of saying like, this could go really bad and this may not work out for me, but I'm going to come up with something else. So just think of those things, go through this list again and really try and think through how you can tackle it so that you make the most of it before you hit submit, before you mail off your application. And so congrats again on making it through the halfway point. I hope that you got some insights on application submission and why it is so important to follow the key steps that we talked about in the video. And so you'll definitely want to implement those as you go through and begin submitting your applications so that you don't miss out on anything and that you are putting your best foot forward as always. Thanks so much for sticking around, and I will see you tomorrow for day 16.